Welcome to another episode of nnEMF Warriors, a podcast where we share the latest research and cutting-edge information on everything to do with electromagnetic fields. Solution-focused interviews, including genuine real-life stories of people affected by harmful EMFs and how they have fully recovered from their debilitating symptoms. So sit back, relax, and get ready to enjoy another episode of nnEMF Warriors.
G'day listeners, welcome to another episode of nnEMF Warriors. I'm your host, Jason Bawden-Smith, and today we have an excellent guest coming from San Francisco, Beth Greer. Beth, are you with us?
Yes, hi, I'm here, Jason.
And how's things over there? I hear the weather's quite warm.
It's one of the hottest days on record. It's breaking all-time record high set in 1904. It's 101 degrees in San Francisco. It's crazy.
Wow. Yeah, the weather's going crazy around the world and things in general seem to be getting out of control. So today we want to focus on Beth's story and how it led to her writing a fabulous book called Supernatural Home. She has an excellent website called supernaturalmum.com. And Beth, if you'd like to take us through the journey from, I believe you started off as an entrepreneur and a businesswoman, and how you went from that getting into the toxic home and healthy living.
Well, I was running a business called the Learning Annex, and it was an adult education business. And one day I got a pain in my shoulder, and so it was odd because I hadn't strained it or anything. And I went to my chiropractor, and after 5 visits, the pain was getting worse. And he said, you need to go get an MRI because you probably have a herniated disc. And so the MRI revealed that I didn't have a herniated disc, but what I had was a mass, a tumor inside my chest the size of a tennis ball. It flipped me out. I thought, how could this happen to me? I was leading a healthy lifestyle, so I thought. I was exercising, watched my weight. I didn't smoke. I even had a meditation practice. So they did a biopsy, and thank goodness it was benign, but it was very painful because it was pressing on the nerves that ran down my arm. And so my fingers were getting numb. I went to 3 top surgeons, and each one of them wanted to perform surgery to remove it, but they couldn't agree on how to access it. So the first one wanted to cut me from the front, under my collarbone, the second one from under my armpit, and the third one wanted to go in and remove one of my ribs to get access to it.
Wow.
This is insane. So I had coincidentally booked a week down in a place called the Optimum Health Institute in San Diego just to get some R&R because I had been stressed. And what I noticed after 3 days of being on a raw food juice fast, basically drinking green juices and doing internal cleansing, I noticed that the pain that I was in started to diminish so that I didn't need sleeping pills at night. And this was just after 3 days. And I realized, taking a look at what is this? And so I was meditating. It's like the word came to me to simplify, because I realized what I was doing at home was I was eating food that really wasn't alive, and I was microwaving my food. I was eating out a lot. I didn't know how what kind of oils they used. And so I thought, this is fantastic. And I spent a week there learning about the importance of nutritious, healing, raw, organic food. And when I came back home, I thought, well, what else can I simplify? And I looked at the deodorant that I used, and it had a lot of ingredients I couldn't pronounce, as did my shampoo and conditioner and moisturizer, right? All these body care, personal care products. And so I simplified. I switched to all natural. In fact, I use baking soda as a deodorant now. I just sprinkle some on my hand and put it under my armpit, and good to go. So, and then as the weeks are going on, I'm feeling better and better and less pain. And then I thought, well, what else can I simplify? What is in my surroundings? And I was holding up a spray bottle of cleaner, and on it, this is a cleaner that I used growing up every day at home. And so on the label, it said, hazardous to humans and domestic animals. And this is a bottle of Windex that we're all using. And so it was sort of shocking to me. And so I switched to hydrogen peroxide and baking soda and white vinegar for cleaning. And I just started getting really, really curious about just everything around me, what I was exposed to, the air in my home, the electromagnetic fields in my home as well. And I realized I was also exposed to pretty high levels of those. So it took 6 months and the pain went away. And then I had the tumor scanned a few months later and it had disappeared. It was completely gone.
Wow, that's fantastic.
So it was a huge wake-up call to me. I realized that our bodies are self-healing. If we don't bombard them with all of the toxins in our homes on a daily basis, what goes in us, our food and water, what goes on us, our skincare products, and what surrounds us, what's in your mattress, carpeting, cleaners, paint, fields. So anyway, my message to people is that making these small shifts has made a tremendous difference in my own health. But don't wait until you get sick the way I did. Start making changes now.
Yeah, what I loved about that story was the word simplify. I've found the more you reduce from your life, the healthier and happier you are. And so many of us are just running around looking for the next greatest whiz-bang thing and just focused on more. They confuse abundance with, how much goods and products they have. And I think it's a key message to simplify. And we won't go into great details into all the strategy you use around the home, but they're published in your book, right? So you've got all the practical solutions on how to make your own cleaning product and how to make your own deodorant in your book. Is that correct?
Yes, and it's broken up into 3 sections, what goes in us, on us, and surrounds us, and you can open it up anywhere. And what I'm proud about this book is that there are solutions in the book. It's not just doom and gloom and all of the horror that we're exposed to, but here are simple things that you can do every day, and you'll feel better, have more vitality, more energy, prevent disease. I'm convinced, and possibly even reverse it.
Beth, that's why I like talking to you, and the more I hear you speak, the more I love what you're doing. Because simplifying and being practical, having solutions, being supportive is everything EMF Warriors is trying to achieve. There is enough doom and gloom. The subjects we talk about are so dramatic just by themselves. We don't need to hype them up. We know that all these things are not healthy for us. So we need to go, okay, this is what life has presented. What can we do to find solutions, workarounds? And it always seems to go back to what Grandma told us. Simplify your life, spend more time in nature, use natural products, organic foods, grow them if you can, get the life force directly out of your garden rather than have something that was harvested months ago, sprayed with pesticides to grow, using toxic fertilizers for the soil, and then they put all these preservatives over it so they don't even biodegrade. And I know you tell a wonderful story about a loaf of bread. Do you want to share that story?
Sure. And I just wanted to add that my book was dedicated to my grandmother. So I when I first started doing public speaking, before I sort of created PowerPoint, I had a little show and tell, and I would bring, showing examples of what foods with food dyes look like, or high fructose corn syrup, or hydrogenated oils and all that. So I had a loaf of bread that I picked it because it said on the label 100% whole wheat. And my point to people is that if you're going to buy something that's made with a product, an ingredient like whole wheat, for example, you wanted to say 100%. You don't want to see the words made with, because if you see the words made with, it can mean 1% or one drop. Like if you see made with essential oils, that could mean only one drop is in there. So anyway, I had this loaf of bread as an example to show them. And so I had it in my pantry, and I had left it there, not in my refrigerator or my freezer. And what happened was 8 months later, I go reach for this loaf of bread, and there's not a speck of mold on it. It is as squishy as the day that I bought it. And I thought, wow, bread should last a few days, maybe. I had forgotten about this thing. So I looked on the label, and it said it was preserved. There was a mold inhibitor called calcium propionate in it. Boy, that really worked. Well, the thing that people should know is that when they tested laboratory animals using calcium propionate, gave the laboratory animals ADHD behavior. So, you think to yourself, what could this be doing to me and my children? Eating a couple of slices for breakfast, maybe have, maybe a sandwich. It's like, it adds up.
Yeah, it's the toxic body load. It's like we're getting bombarded with so many different toxins and contaminants, and our bodies are not coping. We're seeing a massive increase in the incidence of what I call modern diseases. And they've really come on in the last, probably 50 years, but really increasing, like the exponential curve where you get the tail really topping up, going up nearly, and everyone I know is sick, or every second person's got a chronic disease. And
that's so interesting, because I was giving a talk recently, and I started making a list of the people just that I knew, and it was like, let's see, Parkinson's, MS, high blood pressure, digestive problems, hair loss, eczema, migraines. And it was just like, there was a list of like 20 things. These are just people that I know personally. And it was shocking. And the other thing is that I've been talking to pediatricians, and they said that in the last 10 to 15 years, their patient load has completely changed. The children now, 90% of the children that they see have chronic disease. These are children. Chronic disease, they're obese. They have Crohn's disease. They have Lyme disease. They have, sleeplessness, irritable bowel syndrome. I mean, it's just shocking.
It's just terrible. Like, kids are getting diseases only ever found in adults.
That's right.
Now, if that's not an alarm bell, I don't know what is.
Yes. The issue is that it's not one fix can fix everyone. For some children, it's getting them off of dairy and gluten. For other kids, it's maybe getting them away from screen time. Getting them off of their cell phones and their computers, because that's upsetting their nervous system. So sometimes it's trial and error, finding the right people to work with advice.
Yeah, I think there's some key messages, and we're going to get into the topic of today a bit more detail, which is, of course, about electromagnetic fields, because that's who we are. Mm-hmm. But before we do, the key recommendations that I know you would recommend are buy organic, buy local, eat seasonal, support your local producer, your local market farmer. Yes. Most of them have organic, and even if they don't have organic and they care about their produce, they just don't want to go through the cost of getting certified. They may use a little bit of chemicals for the fertilizer, a little bit of pesticides, but it's a lot less than what you're going to get at your supermarket, and know it's pick fresh. So it's so much better for that.
That's right. Foods, the organic foods are also higher in antioxidants and vitamins and minerals than the ones that are factory farmed and sprayed with chemicals as well.
Yeah, so if you walked into a supermarket today, a standard supermarket, I don't know the Americans, I know Amazon just bought Whole Foods, but the standard supermarket, how much of the produce on the shelves would you remove for your family to have, to purchase? Would you remove 90%, 70%? Like, most of our supermarkets are riddled, right, with processed food.
It really depends where you shop. So luckily, living in Northern California, I'm surrounded by Whole Foods. I mean, there's 3 of them just in my vicinity. And then I've got 2 amazing or 100% organic markets that don't use any GMOs. I mean, it's you go in there and you know that everything in there is fine, perfect. And then there are other stores. But the good news is that stores like Costco and Trader Joe's and even Walmart have a tremendous amount of organic produce that they're providing people. And I know that Walmart, I believe, is now the largest purchaser of organic food in the country. It's so big.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's people voting with their wallet. That's fantastic.
Yes. So even if you're living in an area that doesn't have a small organic market, you can find things now in these big box stores. And it's very encouraging to me. So there's really no excuse not to eat organic.
Okay, so the next one that I'm very big on, before we get onto light, which is my biggest one, is water. And water is something we need every day and lots of it. I have moved away from filtered water personally and gone to natural spring water. Did a lot of research to find the right well that I like, deep, hundreds and hundreds of years old, from a national park limestone cave, and it's fantastic. So, and I've seen a dramatic improve in acidity in my body and a whole host of things. So would you drink tap water that comes from the municipal water supply, Beth?
Absolutely not. No, I don't. I have a water filter that not only it alkalinizes and adds extra oxygen to it. It's called Alka Viva. So that's the one that I sort of like using, and it's used in many health clubs and spas. And so I just I've done a lot of research on water, because I was using reverse osmosis water filters, and it took out too much, and so I wound up losing minerals, trace minerals. So I had to add that back in, and yeah.
I agree. I used to use water filtration, but now I found a beautiful spring, and I find that better because it has all the natural minerals in it. But
Yes.
if you can't get the natural spring water, then water filtration is best, and don't drink tap water. So don't fill your ice tray up with tap water, which some people forget to do. Even brushing your teeth, I'll have my water in my bathroom, so I don't use the tap water even to rinse my mouth out. That's how.
That's good. Thank you for that.
I learned that from traveling in third world countries or emerging countries, where you have to be very careful about bacteria and pathogens. And ice was one of the ones that actually got a lot of people sick. Okay, so that's water. Before we move on to cell phones and Wi-Fi and all that, the number one thing for me, and I mean number one, is light. And it's something that people really underestimate how important it is. I didn't learn about it until a couple of years ago, and I studied environmental impacts on human health for over 30 years. So it's okay if people don't know this knowledge, but it's coming. It's coming through a science called quantum biology. It gets a little bit confusing for people, and EMF warriors are doing our best to explain it as easily as we can. And Scott Compton is our in-house expert, together with Jamie Ann Montel. So with light, when you went to your health clinic, the Optimal Health Clinic, did you spend more time in nature, or did you just stay inside and drink green juices?
Oh, no, definitely nature. And I used to have a teacher, Angeles Arian, who's since passed away, but she used to say that it's critical to spend at least an hour a day outdoors. And that was challenging for me when I was running my business. And now that I'm not, I do get out more. I'm out more than an hour. I mean, I walk my dog, at least an hour in the morning and then in the evening. It's so healing just being around the trees. And I'm very fortunate in that I live near water and there's birds. And I used to walk my dog with a headset on and, listening to podcasts. Now I decided, what? I want to just listen to the birds and just feel the peace. And that's really been fantastic.
Yeah. And what we're learning, and what we really missed for so long is AM sunlight. I just can't tell people how important early morning sunlight is. And I know it's hard to restructure someone's busy lifestyle to spend at least 15 minutes, ideally an hour, in the AM sunlight. And when I mean AM, I'm talking from sunrise for 2 hours after sunrise. That's the ideal time. The frequency...
I have to tell you, Jason, I changed my behavior after reading your book because I used to go out in the morning with sunglasses on.
Yeah.
And now I stopped doing that. When you said that, I thought, well, this is easy to do. So I'm out at 8:30 in the morning with the dog, and I have, if it's very sunny out, I put a straw hat on, but I don't wear sunglasses anymore in the morning.
Yeah, it's the number one thing that I changed. I was addicted to sunglasses. I wore sunglasses more than I wore underpants. And I had to throw them out, and now I don't need them at all. Sometimes I wear a hat in the middle of the day in the Australian sun. You don't want to get sunburnt. But apart from that, AM sunlight has changed my life. It really has changed my life. And I actually feel it has more impact than anything else, including food, water. And we're starting to get the science to back that up. And great teachers like Dr. Jack Cruz and all the light guys, John Ott in the old days, Jacob Lieberman. You can go to our website and look at under recommended reading and see all the light books if you want to explore this even more, or dive into our library. Alexander Wunz, a German guy, does an excellent presentation on light. And when we understand that our optometrist got it wrong, they always said, oh, you don't absorb any light through your eyes. No UV get into your retina. We now know that's false. Now, you don't get a lot. You only get a very small percent, but that small percent regulates all your mitochondria, all your biochemistry. It's the biophysics that tells our biochemistry and our DNA what to do. And when we understand this deep quantum biology, it's easy to implement. It's a little bit hard to understand, but it's really easy to implement, and morning sun is really important. So let's move back indoors, because it's our indoor living that I feel has caused the majority of the problems. We saw the real spike in these modern diseases, both in adults and in children, exactly the same time when we introduced a lot of technology, particularly swapping out from incandescent bulbs to the compact fluorescent bulbs and more recently the LEDs. And what happens when you take away the incandescent, actually you go from natural sunlight down to incandescent, you're losing more and more of the full spectrum, and you get rid of the healing aspects of sun, which is the part of the UV and the infrared. And as they've developed better and better bulbs on the basis of minimizing carbon footprint, they've got more efficient, less power, but totally unhealthy. And we spent most of our time, US EPA says up to 95% of our time we spend indoors. And if you have these artificial lights on, you're exposing yourself to damaging light. And people don't understand how damaging that is, not just at night. And do you want to go into, because I know you know a little bit about blue light, and do you wear the blue blocking glasses for your melatonin protection at night?
Right, I do not, but what I've done is I've installed the F.Lux on my app on my computer, so that as the sun is setting and the sky is getting darker, my screen is turning more and more amber. And I like that. And I also have the night shift on my iPhone, so I put that on. Although I'm not on my phone at night, really. I rarely do that. But when I do and when I am, then I'll have the night shift on. And I also turn the lights. I start lighting candles at night, at least 2 hours before I go to bed. I avoid bright lights. And I just kind of really make it sort of an easy transition into bed. I learned that my daughter went to a Waldorf school, and I don't know if you know about Waldorf education.
Yep.
So that was, first of all, there was no electronics in the house, no TV for her, and all this. It was challenging until she didn't get a cell phone until she was 12, I think, which was late, compared to the rest of her friends. But that was the thing that we did. we created this ritual, a sleep ritual. And so the lights got dimmer and, everything was kind of softened, and we went to bed easily, and she's a great sleeper. Even now, she's almost 20, and she loves to get at least 8 hours of sleep a night.
Yeah, and that's so important, building a sleep sanctuary, which we've spoken about a lot on this program. The other program you might want to look at, and listeners may want to know about, is called Iris. It's like an advanced F.Lux. Yeah, it's actually developed by a programmer who identified the limitations with F.Lux and has built much more functionality into that program. So you can share it to other screens if you've got 2 or 3 screens, and you can do lots of other different things to set it up for your purposes. So that's called Iris, like the eye.
IS?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's IRS. I'll put it in the show notes.
Okay.
I can't. Yeah. Let's get on to gadgets. Now, the number one thing that we recommend at EMF Warriors is don't buy the device in the first place. That's the first thing you can do. You don't need all these gadgets. You only need a couple in our modern life. Let's walk through the home. You do household evaluations for electromagnetic fields as part of your services. Is that correct?
Yeah, I do. I go in. I start with the pantry and the kitchen and stuff, and then I look at the personal care products and the household cleaners and stuff. But then I work my way into the EMFs. And the thing that I noticed that's most easy to fix is, it's not a gadget, but for example, an air purifier. I went into someone's home. The little boy had headaches for 2 years, and the mom, he was one of the classmates for my daughter, so it was the Waldorf school. So she was already 100% organic and used, natural cleaning products, and no scent in the home, because artificial fragrances can be a real trigger for headaches and upper respiratory problems. So I wasn't quite sure what I was going to find, if anything, that I would find in their home. But when I walked into this little boy's bedroom, he had a really big air purifier right next to the headboard. And I used my Gauss meter, and it was very high field. And I asked the mom, why do you have this here in the first place? And why is it so close to his head? And she said, well, he has allergies to grass and pollen. And I thought that the closer to his head, the better. So we moved it just 6 feet away, and fields drop off dramatically. And the very next day, she called me up in tears, and she said, this is the first morning in 2 years that he's woken up without a headache.
Wow, and fantastic.
Yeah, so there's that. And then the other thing that I talk about a lot, because whenever I mention it, I will get emails from a bunch of people saying, oh, this happened to me. A baby who wasn't sleeping, and when I went into the bedroom to look at the crib, it was up against a wall with a very high field. And I asked the mom what's on the other side, and she said it's a refrigerator. So this motor from the refrigerator is beaming at this baby's head. It's awful. So we just moved the crib to the other side of the room, and problem solved.
Yeah, there's so many appliances and devices that give off very strong magnetic fields. And we did a podcast the other week going through the house with David and Scott. So those who want to go through all the different rooms and all the different appliances and how we manage those fields, listen to that, because we don't have time to go through them all today. But there's some simple things that you would identify straight away, like no baby monitor with Wi-Fi functionality in the bedroom. That's just crazy, right?
Crazy, and let alone they put it right in the crib for some reason. That's just insane. It's not necessary.
And I'm sure your grandmother and my grandmother were quite happy to hear the baby crying from their bedroom and didn't need a monitor.
That's right. And how big are these homes that you can't hear your kid crying? I don't know.
Well, mothers have a sixth sense. They know when their child's having an issue. They automatically, pick that up. So these crazy devices that we're using to do things we can do naturally are just getting out of control. Right. The other big one that everyone's using is the deck phone.
Yes. Okay. So that I found that field in the decked phones, these are the cordless phones, were higher than the fields in the iPhones or the cell phones. This is communicating from the base station to the cordless phones 24/7. So I always tell people to get rid of those and either just get rid of, if you want to use a cordless, don't have a whole bunch of them where they're communicating with each other.
Yeah. Now, the next, we can go through the whole house, but I think people know that they should turn their Wi-Fi routers off at night or just get rid of them altogether and hardwire your whole house. So those things are pretty well known to our audience. Mm-hmm. What is concerning a lot of people, and I know it concerns you as well, is the rollout of the Internet of Things, where we're getting all these gadgets that are just going to remotely control things wirelessly for our life forever. And then we're going to add more fields, particularly fifth generation fields, which are higher gigahertz millimeter waves, all of which we have no idea what it's going to do to our health. We don't even really know that well what the current ones do, and here we are laying another one over the top. What do you feel about the Internet of Things and the rollout of 5G?
Well, the 5G scares me because here in California, there's a Senate bill coming up that we're trying to oppose. California firefighters and firefighters union and over 200 cities and 34 counties are opposing it. And so most utility poles will become cell towers, basically. And that, as you said, it hasn't been tested for safety or health. We're guinea pigs here. And it's, when we say 4G, 5G, it's a whole other generation of power and rapidity and speed. And so I'm already buzzing with the 4G. I mean, I grew up with it quiet, gosh, I mean, there's sort of no place to go anymore where maybe at the beach, but where you just, or in a forest. So I love to go to those two places where you just don't feel any of that high-pitched buzz that's happening. Fiber optics are safer and more secure than the 5G deployment, as I understand. I'm hoping that they can put this on hold for a while. Yeah,
I don't think they will, unfortunately. Once the decision's been made by the commercial guys, they don't stop. And this is the reason I'm talking to you and we're starting EMF Warriors, because if we can get people to address their issues in their home first, if we can build an army of angry mothers who are saying, hang on a sec, I can manage just the exposures in my house, but all these exposures are happening in our schools, in our shopping centres, in our community, even the towers and antennas they're putting in our local parks. It's getting beyond a joke. And I'm hoping that with your audience and our audience, we can help build these concerned mums. And once they know that these issues are around, they will start addressing them, because they'll have issues in their child's health, or they'll just go, hang on a sec, this is not right. Just like the organic food movement, you told me that just then that Walmart is now the biggest purchaser of organic foods. Well, 10 years ago, that was unheard of.
Right.
So in the space of a few years, we've turned a major commercial outlet into supplying food that's healthy for us. We can do the same with telecommunications, but we have to vote with our wallet and get behind this. So I'm really happy for what you're doing, Beth, and getting this message out and making all the children and their parents so much healthier. Before we let you go, do you want to say anything about schools and things we can do with our kids who are going into these toxic environments now? Is there anything, suggestions you have for schools? Because I think it's one of the hardest ones we've yet to address.
Yes, the schools, most of them are on board with having the Wi-Fi. They're providing kids with tablets and their own laptops. And so if the school is not going to, change and say, well, we're not going to do this or hardwire, then it's really important for us as parents in the home to, what you were talking about, creating a sleep sanctuary, turning the Wi-Fi off at night, limiting their exposure, giving them a break from screen time. There's an author, Victoria Dunkley, who wrote a book about, she puts her patients' children on a 4-week fast, a screen fast, where they have no access to screens at all. And she said she's seen turnaround in bipolar disorder, autism, ADHD. So it's pretty impressive. So I think, we need to do that in our homes. That's the place we have the most control right now.
I agree. If we can't control our schools, and we are going to do a project here at EMF Warriors, and I hope you support, Beth, about how we can help educate our teachers, our school administrators, and the parents and friends committees about this subject. There's a lot of great people doing wonderful work already, but we're going to put together a magazine-style information booklet that can be printed out or looked online, just to give people an outline of the issue. And there are certain things that schools could do now without going to a wide system, which is ideal. And if you're willing, I'd love to run that past you and maybe get your input on that, because we really want to get it down to the audience that you speak to. Like Scott and I can get a little bit technical sometimes, so we want to get it down to a level that's very relatable to the average person. So we're hoping to do that. And what you just said then, Beth, was really important, that every opportunity we have as parents to get our children back into nature, off the screens. So pick a holiday destination where they're going to play on the beach or spend time in nature camping, rather than going to a big, Disney World complex where they're just going to be irradiated non-stop with all the wireless gadgets going on. If we can do that, it's going to really help balance out.
And even if, a vacation aside, I'm talking on a daily basis. And one of the things that I did when my daughter was a teenager and she was texting like a crazy kid, with her thumbs going nuts. I mean, I would say to her, let's go for a walk. And at first she was always resistant. It's kind of like, no, I don't want to. And then I kind of like coax her out of the house and we go on a trail with our dog. And the next thing I know, she's like skipping and she's happy and she's talking to me. It's like a different child. And at least if I could get an hour of that, with her, half an hour, it was fantastic. And she tells me now that she really, really enjoyed the walks that we used to do. So
yeah, I do the same thing. I take our daughter down to the beach as much as possible and get outside and kick a soccer ball and just spend as much time outside as possible, particularly with our shoes off, getting some grounding. Right. I think we've covered a lot of ground here, Beth. I really appreciate you coming on. I really appreciate your support. And yeah, if there's anything else we can help you with and you can help us, that would be amazing.
I would love to help you. And also I have a course that people can, if they're interested, it's a 4-week, it's like 4 hours of video course called, if they go to healthyhomecourse.com, you can learn more about it.
Excellent. You're doing a great service and I really appreciate you and what you're doing.
Thank you.
With that,
I really appreciate what you're doing. It's fabulous. Your book is phenomenal.
Thanks, Beth. Well, that's another great episode of EMF Warriors. Thank you, Beth, for coming on board.
Thank you for being part of the EMF Warriors community. We look forward to bringing you our next episode. Be certain to join in discussions on our EMF Warriors closed Facebook group. And to make sure you subscribe to our fortnightly newsletter to stay up to date with global developments. If you would like to learn more about us, go to emfwarriors.com, where we have curated an amazing library of free information, resources, and solutions to your most pressing EMF concerns and needs. Because together we can make a real difference. The materials and content discussed within this podcast are the opinions of host Jason Bawden-Smith and Scott Compton and guest interviews. This information is intended as general information only for listeners of this podcast. Listeners should always seek professional advice, and the content and opinions expressed in this podcast should never be construed as a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. EMF Warriors.